every Sunday, I just get a chance to just go live with Kayla Thompson. Here we go. Every Sunday, I open up the Word and I break down revelation knowledge, life knowledge.
What? Sorry, I didn't turn that down. Oh, you got to turn yours down. Your volume's coming off your phone.
I already turned mine down.
I know I did the same thing, and my phone just turned it all the way up again.
Mine's just all the way down.
Let me fix.
I don't know why it's doing that.
Maybe.
Okay. So I think we're good.
Okay.
So, all right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Beyond the Pulpit. This is your host, Andy Thompson. And I am joined today by the lovely, wonderful, immensely talented, hair braided. It's her hair, by the way. Wonderfully eyelashed. Little bit today. Beautiful and available. I'm taking applications. My daughter, Kayla Thompson. Kayla, you want to say something to the people really quickly? We are on Instagram Live and we are also on YouTube. This is Beyond the Pulpit. Kayla, say something to the people real quick.
Hey, everybody. I can still hear myself through your phone.
I don't know.
Is it all the way down?
It is as down as it'll go.
Hello, everyone who joined. For people who are on my dad's Instagram, what's up? I don't think I've ever gone live with you on your Instagram, but what's up? I'm Kayla. And for people who are joining from my Instagram, hi. I haven't gone live on my Instagram in a while. I'm excited to talk about House of the Dragon. It's one of my favorite shows. It's one of my favorite shows, ever right now. I think it's one of the best shows ever made. Maybe I'm just being a little dramatic. But
okay, all right. Well, this was your idea. It was your idea to do this House of the Dragon thing. And so basically what I was saying is every single Sunday, I open up the scriptures. Where's my Bible? I open up the Word, and I sit here and I break down revelation from the Bible. Today, Beyond the Pulpit, we're going to get some revelation from House of the Dragon. Now, listen, if you're not aware of House of the Dragon, if you don't know anything about the show, if you're not aware of Game of Thrones, if you're not aware of any of this stuff, number one, step into the 21st century. Number two, stop having so much of a life and get hooked on TV, okay? Stop going outside. Stop being friendly. Stop hanging out with your friends.
Stop being, productive.
Stop being productive.
Stop
working. Stop making so much money. Sit on your couch and don't take a shower and stop and eat some chips and get crumbs on your belly and just watch Game of Thrones, okay?
3 a.m.
Stay up till 3 a.m., call in late, don't go to work the next day, almost get fired, just so you can get caught up on Game of Thrones. Quite honestly, if you don't know anything about Game of Thrones, that's okay because House of the Dragons or Dragon Tales, that is a prequel, okay? Yes. Now, it's not like the other prequels you heard. If you ever knew anything about the prequels, from Star Wars, the prequels, don't worry. There's no Jar Jar Binks. There's nobody crazy like that in there. It's a prequel, but it's actually quite wonderful. It's a very, very good show. Good, yes. So you don't need to have watched Game of Thrones to watch House of the Dragons, okay? And but if you've never seen it, get HBO Max. It costs about $7, or just get it on somebody else's membership, like Kayla is. We are with my brother Joey. Thanks, Joey.
Thanks, Uncle Joey.
Or just pay for it and get HBO Max and all the wonderful shows and programs that's on there. House of the Dragons, it's a wonderful show. We're not sponsored by House of the Dragons, but we'll take it. But we are here. And so today we're going to talk about House of the Dragons, and we're going to just...
You adding this S.
It's House of the Dragon.
Dragon.
No.
Thing down a little bit.
I turned it down as far as it'll go. I think because I'm the one that started the Instagram, it's just not gonna mute. It's not gonna go all the way down to nothing.
Like that. Okay.
It's down as low as it'll possibly go, but we're okay.
We're fine.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Believe me, if you're not aware of House of the Dragons, okay, don't go nowhere because we're gonna apply it to life.
Yes.
And we're gonna talk about some stuff beyond the pulpit. Yeah. That's definitely going to be what we're going to do. So share it with somebody. We're on here Beyond the Pulpit. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, I think, like you were just saying, we're definitely going to talk about the entire season. But if you might just be intrigued and, to watch the show yourself and see all the things we're talking about, because we won't go detail by detail about stuff, but we'll just reference a lot of things. But I mean, okay, to start it off, coming off the heels of Game of Thrones season 8, what was your because a lot of fans were very disappointed by the way that show ended. So kind of hearing about this show, were you excited? Were you like, okay, I'll give this a chance? Like, what were your kind of like thoughts? Because I didn't really know what to think personally.
I was definitely, as many people, I was definitely disappointed by the end of Game of Thrones. I really felt like, Game of Thrones, the series, taught us some very dangerous lessons to learn.
Yeah.
And one of those lessons, I think we have to be careful not to apply this. We have to be careful not to apply this lesson to life. But I think one of the Game of Thrones lessons is no act of mercy goes unpunished. I think at the end of the day, Daenerys had some very lofty goals. She really did want to save the world. Her heart really was in the right place. She was in a way duped into looking out for the greater good, and instead of putting her dragons or her own well-being or safety or the kingdom above anything else, she actually fell into the idea of, oh, we need you to save the world.
Right.
And I think she was an excellent example of, love and need. I've said that there's relationships, there's like a triangle of that a tripod that relationships can be built on.
Yeah.
Okay. And that tripod is love and need and, oh my God, my brain, I can't remember what the third one was, but it's like, that whether or not you are actually loved versus needed versus feared. That was the three. That was the third. Yeah. Love, need, fear.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes, I feel like we have to look at God in that way. Like, I love the Lord, I need the Lord, I'm afraid of the Lord. If in a relationship, it's like, I love this person, I need this person, I'm afraid I might lose this person. Okay. Yeah. And so I think that, in a sense, that did they love Daenerys? No, she's a Targaryen, she's got a bad reputation, or not her, but her family. They need her, absolutely. But once the White Walkers are dead, they don't need her anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now her only thing that she can do is just to make everybody afraid of her. And so I just felt like, to me, she was used. And, then once they didn't need her anymore, now now she's noticing how they feel about Jon Snow. They don't really feel about, and there no dragons hatch for Jon Snow. So they're not alive without her. So I was disappointed in the way that it ended, and I felt like it's a dangerous lesson to learn. And I think that, in this world right now, we need peace on earth, goodwill towards men, and we need whatever we can. We need to do whatever we can do to try to engender kindness and love and charity towards one another. And Game of Thrones almost makes you feel like if you're merciful or charitable, it doesn't work out for you. It doesn't work out for you. I mean, even if we go all the way back to Jaime Lannister, it's like he's trying to save Brienne Tarth. He could have just let whatever was going to happen to her. But it's like he spoke up for her and he loses a hand. Yeah. It's like the minute you decide to be merciful in some kind of way,
even like holding so tightly to your, I was going to say morals, but I guess more just like your morals or your kind of like inner, well, I'm referencing Ned Stark. Like Ned Stark was so hard pressed on his beliefs and his morals and being right and being honorable. That's right. I mean, spoiler alert, he didn't make it through season 1.
Right. I mean, exactly. It's like
the Game of Thrones is not.
You take in a way, it's like whoever is the most. And I think it was sad because Daenerys she had all of these virtues, but she also had power.
Right.
Ned Stark didn't have as much power, and then he got into this political world, and the next thing you know, he's thrown to the wolves. He got eaten up. It's like he just wasn't prepared to battle against all of the strength that was around the throne.
Yeah.
And so, I was looking forward to this a little bit. At first I wasn't quite so sure if I was going to like it, but I really did.
Yeah.
I really did.
I think, I loved it. And I think I had an interesting thought, just like kind of like breaking the fourth wall of the show. I guess it's just like the production of the show. When I was kind of looking into it, I found it really interesting because I felt like it took a lot of faith for them to make this show, because they started pre-production on this show in 2019, which was the year that they aired. I think it was the year, that they aired the finale, the final season, and it was doing so bad. I mean, fans were really upset. And we just talked about Daenerys. That was the main storyline that people were upset about. So you're going to make an entire show on her history, like her family's history, and you're going to not only start over, make a whole new show, but you're going to put more money into it, $20 million per episode. You're going to have a show where you're taking huge risks of, like, if you watch the show, it's like halfway through the season, they recast the main characters because they age up. They do like huge time jumps. It's a lot of risks that they take to be like, no, this show's going to be amazing. This show's going to be, and it paid off. It's kind of like, it ended up being their biggest, I think HBO's biggest premiere, like, to date. It was like 10 million views.
Yeah, I think the entertainment world is interesting, and I know this isn't really the point. We want to get into a little bit of the show and some of the life lessons that we can take from it. But I mean, I think it's a very interesting time in the entertainment world, and I think it applies to almost everything. It's like, I mean, before COVID, movies was just the thing to do. Right. And there was just major money that was being spent on making movies. And the biggest blockbuster things were the movies. And I think there's still some of that happening to a certain extent. But it's almost like, it's not surprising that HBO or any of these streaming networks are going to spend $20 million an episode, because the truth is that we're not spending as much making blockbuster movies as we used to. Yeah. Because the movie scene is not, this is the movies now.
Right.
And so, it's not surprising to me that they would spend as much money as they, and it's not surprising to me that they're doing as well as they're doing, because HBO Max is a big platform. In a way, it reminds me of like when I was a kid. When I was younger, there were only a certain amount of channels. There was ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS, which is public, and then you had your UHF channels, right? Mm-hmm. Which was, for me as a kid, 25, 38, 56, and then eventually 68. So all TV was 8 channels. Wow, okay? That's all. There was only 8 channels, and when it went off, it went off. And in a way, we're kind of back to that a little bit, because you got HBO Max,
I see your point.
Netflix, Hulu. Yeah. There's only but so many of these that are coming up with original content. Right. There's only 5 or 6 of them. So you're either looking at HBO Max, or you're looking at Netflix, or you're looking at Hulu, or you're looking at Disney Plus. Right. And their original Apple TV's got some original content. Mm-hmm. Now there's more of them trying to pop up, Paramount Plus and Peacock, and there's other ones that are trying. But right now, really, HBO Max is really dominating. It's like, and so now it's like, well, if you want to look for serious content, it's back down to another 5 channels in a way. And so it shouldn't be surprising to us that Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon did as well as it did, considering the fact that, hey, it's on HBO Max. Yep. And HBO Max is like CBS. HBO Max is like NBC. Mm-hmm. Like, that's like a major network at this point right now. And so, Very cool. Sure.
Okay, sorry. So back to the show. So, okay, I think we were having an interesting conversation just around like, okay, how do we relate this to, like, real life? And you were talking about the Targaryens, their family, and the Game of Thrones, and the aspect of power, divine right, versus like your ability to rule or discipline and morality, and people thinking that they could do it better, but the Targaryens have the blood and dragons, and like, so. And that's kind of obviously what we're seeing in the show. We're seeing the Targaryens versus what we're calling the Greens, which are like the Hightowers and Alicent and Otto and all of them. So, like, what? Go. Like, your thoughts.
I think there's a couple of different ways, that it applies that I think is kind of cool. I think one of the ways to think about it is that, for all of us who are Christians, for all of us who believe in a higher power, for all of us believe that we have angels on our side. Somebody just say, Kayla, are you single? So for everyone that's saying, yes. So for everyone who's saying, who believes, yes, I have a prayer life. I have angels on my side. I believe in the Holy Spirit, or I believe in God, or I believe in a higher power. In a sense, the Targaryens are this excellent example of kind of, sure, you've got a certain amount of discipline. Sure, you got a certain amount of law. Sure, you have a certain amount of structure. but then you have this whole other superpower that can show up if it has to, and can breathe fire on a situation and can make something happen and make something and bring a level of threat or a level of change. We see that right from the beginning. It's like Damon steals an egg, and then Rhaenyra gets on her dragon. He has a dragon. You can come with your soldiers all you want, but then his dragon shows up and is standing there, and it's
nothing
like
you can do.
no, but there's nothing anybody can do.
Yep.
And as much as he's there with his sword, doesn't mean he doesn't know how to fight. It doesn't mean he doesn't have weapons. It doesn't mean he's not armed. It doesn't mean he hasn't practiced. Okay, so sometimes we want the dragon to do everything. No. There's still a part that has to do with your discipline. It has to do with your ability to fight, and your ability to study, and your ability to be disciplined, and your ability to be strong. And early in the beginning, they're kind of like, yeah, but Daemon can't rule. So just because you have a dragon doesn't necessarily mean you're supposed to rule either. Right. So you still have to have qualities that make you worthy of leadership, but it certainly does help if you have a dragon. Absolutely. And I think that, one of the things that's interesting kind of in my world, in the world of the clergy, is sometimes there's almost this battle between the people that are fruitful versus the people that are faithful, or the people that are very gifted versus the people that are very disciplined. Right. So sometimes the church world can kind of err on which side do we want? Do we want really gifted people that may not necessarily be as whatever good or righteous, or what? Sometimes we want power. We want gifting. We want anointing. Yeah. And if somebody's gifted and powerful and anointed, then we like that person. Sometimes the church world is like, yeah, no, that's bad. We want people that are trustworthy, and people that are consistent, and people that we can track what they're going to do. And sometimes it's an either or situation. I don't think it should be an either or situation, but sometimes it is. Yeah. And in a way, when Daemon first came on the scene, when we first saw Daemon, it's like, oh yeah, here's somebody with a dragon, but no life. His life's out of control, you know? Right. And then you've got his brother Viserys, who's sitting on the throne. He's got the family, he's got the morals, he's got the sense, but he has no dragon anymore. And so we're looking at this kind of total opposite balance. And even right now, it's like, the Greens, the high towers and all of them, it's kind of like the fact that they've been able to get a kid with a dragon, like that's just a game changer for them. Yep. Because,
all three of their kids have dragons, but
right. But it's like when we look at Game of Thrones, it's like we're looking at people who there's no power, there's no superpower, there's no magic, there's no extras. That's what makes Daenerys so interesting, because she can walk through fire. So it's clearly there's an anointing on her. There's a gift on her. There's a power that she has. Yeah. She's able to mount up on wings like an eagle. You know what I'm saying? She has something that will breathe fire for her and empower her from behind. And the thing that's interesting about even Game of Thrones is, when it first started, and I read the book, but when it first started, those Stark kids found those dire wolves. Dire wolves were in the book. They never made it that way in the show, the way it was supposed to be in the book. In the book, they were wolves. They were wolves the size of horses. Like, they were not like wolves, like a little bit bigger than a German Shepherd. They were giant monster type things. Yeah. And it was kind of like, it made you feel like, oh, wow, maybe these Stark kids are going to have a superpower. Right. Maybe they're going to have an extra something. Yep. And I think that whether it was the book or whether it was just saying, hey, dragons are going to be way more interesting. Let's go to dragons and let's make it all about Daenerys and her dragons. Yeah. But I think that is a part of some of it. That's one of the first things that I kind of saw,
It's true. And it's like, well, I think I definitely see that like, dichotomy, I guess, between Rhaenyra and Alicent, where Alicent is very by the book, by the rules, does what she's told, does what she thinks is supposed to be done, because she's, trying to be lady at first. Now she's queen and all these things. And Rhaenyra she's chaotic. She's rebellious. She's young. She's, and so at first it's like Alicent is even trying to tell Rhaenyra, like, hey, abide by some of these, like, these, morals and these kind of customs, because it's going to actually help you. And so we start to see when Rhaenyra she's having kids that ain't, it's like it starts to actually lessen her ability to be, she's a woman, so of course there's that aspect of, is she really going to be the heir or not? But we talked about that a little bit the other day of like, it kind of actually weakened her claim, yes, to the throne.
Yeah, but I mean, I also think that, another interesting thing to kind of think about it is, okay, so you choose this dragon in a way the dragon chooses you. And now you begin to have an effect on each other. It's not just your effect on the dragon, but it's the dragon's effect on you.
Yeah.
And a part of what we saw even in the last episode is something we almost had never seen before. But it was a little bit of a obey me, obey me, obey me. It's like all of a sudden, they're on the boys are on dragons and they're like, heed me, like do what I say. Yep. And it gives you a little bit of a glimpse of the fact that they are on a bit of a wild animal and they're on a dragon, and the dragon does have its own will and does have its own mind. Mm-hmm. And so there's a certain amount of strength and a certain amount of power and a little bit of it that makes you not be able to control it. Right. And so I'm saying all that to say that maybe in a sense, being connected to a dragon gives you a little bit of that too. It's almost like you're a little more wild. You're a little bit more unpredictable. Mm-hmm. You're a little bit, and again, to me, I think that this is another thing that we see in the world. Sometimes the people that are the most gifted and the most talented, sometimes they are the least disciplined. Sometimes they are the hardest to pin down. Sometimes they are the hardest to put into a box. Sometimes they are the ones, sometimes with great power also comes great risk. So if you're a risk taker, then you're taking risks. Yeah. And the same person that will stand up in front of everybody and be like, oh wow, a miracle is about to take place, is the exact same person that will also kind of take a risk of people thinking, oh, nobody's gonna know. Mm-hmm. It's like with that power, they all go together. And so it's kind of like, sometimes we see that. It's like if we just think about some of the greatest artists that have ever lived, like we think about somebody like Prince or Michael Jackson or George Michael or any of these people, sometimes with that great, great gift kind of comes a hole, and then they can't sleep, and then they're doing drugs, and it's like, and some of those two things go together. Sometimes the people that are most calm and the most normal and the most sane and the most, it's almost, a lot of times it's like you find out and you hear their story later. They were doing drugs and they were doing this, they were doing that, and they had all these demons, like Johnny Cash. Right. It's like immense gift, amazingly, Ray Charles, amazing gift. Watch his story. It's like you're finding out about his drug abuse. You're finding out about, it's like sometimes with that great gifting comes this great, it's almost like with great pain comes, comedic power. I've even heard them say one of the most dangerous things that can happen to a comedian is for him to become overly comfortable. Because it's almost like from the pain comes the ability to tell the joke. That's why, the Jews were comedians, or African Americans have been comedians, because it's like under all this oppression, from that pain comes the ability to see it in a way. And so, sometimes those two things go together, and I think that's something that is reflected in this. Yeah, it's true. I also like the idea of, okay, you have a right to rule, but you also have a power behind you that will strengthen you to be able to rule. So I think that's a part of it, Yeah. I mean, I also think that, when you think about the dragons and you think about kind of whether or not somebody's right to be in leadership. It was interesting to me that, that just because you had a dragon didn't mean you could rule. And, but, I think that, sadly enough, when you even in the people like Millicent, it's like there's there's just a certain amount of naivete that goes along with kind of like, oh, it's going to be okay. Right. No, it's true. Like everything's perfect, or everything's overly good. And
because you're going to, and I think that's what, with her character, is a good point, because with her character, I think that's what causes her to like get caught up in like adding to the fire, because she's resenting Rhaenyra for the fact that she's done everything right and it didn't actually pan out, because she thought, if I do everything, to the T, I'm going to get, the result that I want. And so,
I mean, I think it also kind of points to like, okay, so should somebody have a job because sometimes it's almost like I'm reading a lot of discussions or reading a bunch of articles on, oh, well, should somebody go to college at this point? You know, I was reading something from the Tesla guy. Neither one of our brains are working tonight.
I know, what the heck? Elon
Musk. And it was like in this thing, he was kind of saying, probably 90% of people don't need to go to college. Like his point was that there's so many more ways to make money beyond just going to college. If you use the internet properly, use the computer properly, you can make a lot of money. Just because you go and get a 4-year degree doesn't mean you're going to come out. You have a greater chance of coming out with debt and then a job that's not going to pay. Your ROI on your college, your experience is not going to be worth it. You're $100,000 in debt for a job that pays you $50,000 a year. You would have been better off finding ways and skills and jobs on the internet to be trained in. And then, you know, and so there ends up being kind of this question of, well, what's the point of college? What's the point of the discipline of the reading? Is it just a scam just to get your money? You know, and so, I mean, I know I've said to your brothers, you know, to you some too, it's kind of like college to me is also about becoming. It's about being disciplined. It's about reading. It's about your mind changing. I don't know if it's just about getting a job. I think it's about you becoming an individual person and you becoming a complete person and you filling your head with thoughts besides just the thoughts from your generation or the thoughts that you have on your own or the thoughts of your friends or the thoughts of celebrities. Like your head is full of what, you know, Kim Kardashian thinks because you've never read Ovid. So, but you're not going to read Ovid unless somebody makes you read Ovid. So, you know, it's kind of like, to me, you know, I don't know if college is necessarily about, oh, yeah, I'm going to go to school for 4 years and I'm going to come out and get this job. But I'm saying that, in a sense, Musk's argument is, hey, if you have really great talent and a really great gift, you don't really need the discipline. You know? And it's kind of like, you know, you've got the Allisons and the Hightowers and the Greens and everybody in there, they don't have dragons. So it's like they have to lead with military might and strength and character and law and rule and strategy and councils, you know. And then somebody with a dragon can kind of just come through and just kind of take over. So it's like we see that all the time. It's just the world that we live in. I mean, right now it's like there's significant parts of our world that are dominated by people that are immensely talented. I mean, LeBron James has a huge impact on the world because he has a dragon. And that dragon is that he's 6'9", 240, fast, can run, can jump, is one of the top 5 best basketball players of all time. Okay. Shaq has a dragon. His dragon is that he was 7'3" and quick and fast and big and strong, one of the most dominating centers of all time. It's just a dragon. You know, Beyonce has a dragon. Jay-Z has a dragon. It's like you know, Drake has a dragon. What's his dragon? He has a gift. He can write. He can make people feel a certain way. So it's like we are immensely impacted by people that have talent. And we allow those people that have that talent to dictate how we live our lives based on whether or not they're qualified to lead it all. So Dwayne Wade has a son who's transgender, and now it's like he's some kind of champion in the transgender world because he's allowed his son to decide he's not a boy who's is a girl. And as much as I respect Dwayne Wade's right to love his son or his daughter or whatever his child is, the way he wants to love his child, I don't know if Dwayne Wade is qualified to lead us as a culture or as a society in this just because he's a basketball player. But he has a dragon. His dragon was his speed. His dragon was his. It doesn't mean he didn't have to. It doesn't mean he didn't have to be disciplined. It doesn't mean he didn't have to go to school. He did. He had to get the right SATs. He had to go to school. He had to stay clean. He had to, you know, he had to stay out of trouble. Sure. Because there's tons of guys born with speed and quickness and jumping ability who never play in the NBA. Got you. But all I'm saying is, still, okay. He had a dragon, and now, you know, we're greatly influenced by the fact that he had a dragon. And, you know, I think that, you know, that the world that we live in is immensely impacted by people who are more talented and gifted than educated or intelligent. It's like, ooh, let's sit Tom Cruise down and let Tom Cruise tell us how to live our lives. And the dude's an actor.
Right.
His job is to read other people's lines.
Right.
He's not a thinker.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying he doesn't have any thoughts, but so I think it's an interesting.
No, it's a very interesting, like, yeah.
It's like, would Donald Trump be president if it wasn't for the popularity of his shows, if it wasn't for the popularity of The Apprentice, if it wasn't for his entertainment value, if it wasn't for the fact that we're a little bit in awe of celebrity anyway. Donald Trump got to a level of celebrity, and his father was rich and left him money, and so the person that has more is given. So he had the dragon of his wealth. But most people who are as rich as Donald Trump don't care about being famous. They don't care. Especially if it's real estate and that kind of stuff, they don't care.
Right.
Okay. Even Mark Zuckerberg, somebody like him, is like, he never dresses up for the camera. He doesn't dye his hair orange. He doesn't, whereas, Donald Trump decided that with the wealth, he also was going to be someone that we were going to talk about and put his name on towers. And as a result of the dragon of his celebrity, along with his wealth, the guy ended up being king.
Yep.
Yep. And has had a tremendous impact on American culture.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if he wins. He's definitely going to run again. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up president for another 4 years. Yeah. Just because of the impact of his celebrity. And I think we have to have a question. We have to ask ourselves the question of like, okay, well, who's really allowed to influence culture and who's really allowed to tell us what to think? Now, we can be mad because it's we can say, oh, no, it's not Donald Trump. But then, well, who's Whoopi Goldberg? She's on The View. I mean, yeah, she's an African-American woman. Great, wonderful. She was a comedian. Not saying she's not smart. She is. Like, she's great. No shade men against Whoopi. Love her to death. But I just don't know if she's actually qualified. What does she have? She had a dragon.
Right.
She had a gift. She had a third eye. She saw the world in a humorous way. She became hugely popular. I mean, she wasn't dedicated or disciplined. I don't want to make the argument again, but I'm saying that the influence that she has on the world from her position. Michael Strahan. Michael Strahan was a football player. Right. Okay. If it wasn't for football, would we know who he was? Right. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, I think that in a way that's reflective of it too.
Yeah, it is. And it's making me think, the second thing I wanted to ask you about is like your thoughts on Viserys as king, because he obviously gets this right. He gets this, he gets to be king because of he's Targaryen. He's next in line. They skipped over Rhaenys because she's a woman. And I mean, he stumbled and struggled. I mean, could we say he failed? Like, what did you think of kind of how he handled that as a king and how that reflects? I feel like it reflects as a pastor, as a leader. But what were your thoughts on that? Like, how would you kind of connect those two? Because I think is a good bridge.
I mean, again, I think they didn't spend a whole lot of time on this in the show, but it's like, I mean, he did have a dragon at one point. Yeah. So it's like at one point, sure, he's a Targaryen. Sure, he was kind of raised, that once it was like, okay, well, somebody's going to get the throne. Whoever was king didn't have an heir. And so now it's going to come down to one of them, and he's the closest male heir. And I think an interesting thing for us to talk about that, I don't know if we're going to talk about it, we could, is kind of, because the show, it's interesting to me how the show tackles a lot of very modern issues that we're having today that we just kind of go along with it. We're just kind of like, oh, okay, it's all right. We don't look at it. Because the show is a glimpse into a world that's very patriarchal and very male dominated. It's very interesting how popular the show is and how the show causes us to deal with the attitudes about women at the time and the fact that women really were traded, really used as a commodity and really were used to really kind of secure power. Right. And it's something that we kind of talk about, but it's interesting, the popularity of the show. It puts it right in our face. Yeah. The fact that, if you're a woman, I mean, right from the beginning, it's like, it doesn't matter what he says. No one's going to accept you on the Iron Throne. It's just not something that's ever going to happen. You're a woman. No one's going to want to follow you. And so, in a sense, you know, we feel that at the end of Game of Thrones. It's like, it's Daenerys, so yeah, it's great. But at the end of the day, there's just a certain amount of, this is a lack of trust in women overall. And I think women are seen in that world as the weaker sex. I don't know if that's something, I know that's definitely something that women today, especially women in the feministic movement, do not want that felt. They don't want to feel like they don't have the power to rule, or they don't have the clarity to rule, or they don't have the consistency to rule, or they don't have the ability to make the strong decisions to do what needs to be done. Right. I felt like a part of the challenge of House of the Dragons was, I mean, here's Viserys is deciding, yeah, I don't care, my daughter's going to be queen. That's it. She's my heir. And it's almost like right off the bat, she's just, and I guess we saw it a little bit in the princes as well, because, you know, Aegon's a little bit this way, although I've got another explanation for that. But I do think that it was very interesting that, you know, here he's kind of gone on the line to decide to make his daughter heir. He's determined to stick to that notion, even when he has a son. He's like, well, yeah, but I said it's going to be my daughter, and it's going to be my daughter. Mm-hmm. And in a way, she kind of doesn't live up to it. And right. She's wrestling about who to marry. She struggles. It takes so long that by the time they make an alliance, the alliance is not, I don't think it was the best decision. I think there were better guys that she could have chosen if she hadn't been so just being belligerent, or just being in her emotions and being in her feelings. And I think that in and of itself is a notion that kind of wars against the idea of, can a woman be president, or can a woman be CEO? It's, can she make the rational decision? Women are seen more as emotionally driven and heart driven than rationally driven. Yeah. Now here we are saying, listen, you got to marry for the good of the empire. Mm-hmm. Maybe it bothers men, but it bothers her so much as a woman that she's putting it off, and she's not doing it, and she's not. Yeah. And then she ends up marrying somebody who isn't really a very good choice, because as much as he has the connections because of his orientation, it opens her up to, really, her throne is not secured because of this whole thing that ends up happening with her. And so if she could have had the clarity, I know she was young, but you understand what I'm saying?
No, I do. I think though, I think I saw it differently. I mean, I think she's dealing with I don't think it's an emotionality issue. I think she's actually struggling with, even if she is queen, she's still kind of in this gender role of having kids and watching her mother die of childbirth. I think really, really affected her. So I think she's kind of putting it off out of this fear, because that's what she says to Damon in that episode. And he's like, well, you can't live by that fear. And that's when she's kind of like, okay, yeah. Right. But no, I think it's interesting. And I think the thing about Viserys, and I think this connects with, I don't know, I think pastors, leaders maybe, is like, I think he holds on to this belief that Rhaenyra is going to be queen, as he originally thinks, okay, there's this Song of Ice and Fire prophecy that he's sticking to so hard, that he heard, or he had a dream, he read about, and he had a dream that he was going to have a son. So he first pushes his wife to have, you know, this fifth kid that is stillborn again. So he loses his wife, you know, and so he's like, okay, I was wrong. So she must be it. She must be the answer to the prophecy. And he struggles in that one episode, like, where he's getting drunk, and then maybe it is Aegon, and he's kind of stressed because he's like, did I read the prophecy wrong? Am I like not, you know, kind of abiding by what the Lord told me? And he's all stressed out, and it's like, Viserys, he can't see. It's almost like he can't even like see straight with what's going on in front of him because of this dream. And so I don't know. I find that an interesting connection as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be hard when you're leader of a company. Like we've seen this in like a show like Succession, or just in real life. It's like there are people who, you know, there's a way that they feel about their children, and they're going with that decision.
Yeah.
How many people have been upset because they're working for the boss's son or for the boss's nephew or the
Right.
boss's daughter or the boss? You know what I'm saying? It doesn't just happen in the church. It definitely happens in the church world, but it happens in the world in which somebody says, well, I have a feeling about this person, or I believe in this person's ability to be a leader in this particular situation.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of failure that happens as a result of that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of organizations that fail, a lot of businesses don't do well. There's businesses that do well. Okay, there are, where Henry Ford starts it and he hands it off to his son, and his son takes it to another level, and his son takes it to another level. It is possible, but there's also tons of stories in which nepotism is extremely dangerous. Now we're looking at the royal line, so it's like because I think that if we're gonna focus just on House of the Dragons, the truth of the matter is that he does make a mistake, because she shouldn't be queen. I don't think she should be. I think as long as it was his only heir. He never thought he was going to have another child, and the minute he was remarried and the minute he had a son, he should have said, "Yeah, it's going to be my son." The part of the reason why we're dealing with all of the issues,
So
if we're trying to figure out what happened with the Targaryens, like we're looking from Game of Thrones, how did they lose it? Well, this is a part of it, okay?
Yeah.
Because right now, the empire is being thrown into war, and a significant aspect of it is simply because of his determination to he should have listened to his advisors. He should have listened to the people around him. He could have married Rhaenyra. She could have married Lannister. When Jason Lannister came and said, "Listen, it's not going to be a very big fall from her station," it wouldn't.
Yeah.
She could have been used to solidify the throne. That could have been the role, that she could have been the wife of a very big house. She could have still had her dragon.
But
All of this stuff now, right now, we've got Targaryens versus Targaryens, because Viserys was just too determined to make his daughter queen when there's never been a queen before. Yeah. And I get it if he doesn't have a son, but her cousin told her from the beginning, "Girl, you are never going to be queen. Get it in your head. Right. Nobody should have been queen like me. And if they didn't give it to me, they're not going to get it to you. So get over yourself." The minute he had a little boy, he should have been like, "Oh, hey, everybody, listen, I love my daughter to death, but if my job is to secure the kingdom and to secure the future, then I need to not just pick who I like, but I need to pick who everyone is going to
be back behind."
And it was proven on the show when he stood that little dude up and the hall is full and he said, "It's going to be my son." Everybody's like, "Yay," because even in their world, their world is still very masculine run.
So because some people are watching the show and they think, and I'm saying this because I know how you're going to answer. But some people watch the show and see how Aegon became and are like, "See, exactly, he was right. Like, he shouldn't have named him heir because Aegon is crazy. He's crazy. He's off the rails. They're looking for him. They're like, 'No, we're gonna make you king,' and he's literally running away. He has bastard kids everywhere. He's sexually assaulting people at a teenager. I mean, he's a hot mess. So they're looking like, right. So actually, maybe Viserys' feeling that prophecy was this is Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra is the answer to the Song of Ice and Fire, is right, because Aegon he's not fit to be king at all.
But we could just as easily look at the causality of it, because here you are. Okay, so here you're Aegon. You're born, right? And by the time you wake up, you have an older sister. There's never been a queen before. Everybody around you is just like, it's your firstborn son. Daughters, thank you. But if you have a son, it's never been the firstborn. It's your firstborn son. So now you're the firstborn son ever born in the world that doesn't get to be king. So it's hard for you to not take that as something must be wrong with you. There must be something inherently off with you, and you feel rejected. It's like even in the carriage, he says to Alicent, "Yeah, he never liked me. So if you feel like he never liked you, if you feel like he always rejected you, if you feel like he liked Rhaenyra more than you, then that's going to make you crazy. It's going to make you off the rails. It's going to make you drunk. It's going to make you go crazy. If you're never being raised to be king from the beginning, if from his first breath, if Viserys had say, oh, well, got a son, he's going to be king. And from the minute he was 2, his every waking breath was, you're going to be king. And he had been trained to be king. Sure, of course, Aemon wants to be king because Aemon has no chance to be king. Everybody who has no chance of being king can say, well, I want to be king. Of course you want to be king, dude. You have no chance of being king. But here's the person who should be king and isn't going to be allowed to be king just because Viserys just got it in his head that he's going to do something different. I know all the women are like, yes, oh, hallelujah. Finally, somebody that chooses the woman. But in their world, that's not the case. That's not the world that they live in.
Otto is like, tells Alicent, listen, this realm is going to be set ablaze.
If you
no one is going to accept her.
If you think for a second, the only way for her to be accepted is if your kids are killed. He's right. You've had sons, girl. You're doomed. You are going to have to play this game right because and whose fault is this? It's Viserys' fault. Aww. He doesn't listen to his hand. His hand is telling him.
Okay, now wait a minute. Now Otto was in it for himself from the minute.
Kayla, Otto was smart. Everybody was trying to do that.
But he should have. I know she was a little baby. I know she was a baby. But I think he really should have married Lena. I know she was 2 years old, but the Valerians are the second strongest house in the realm. They already have dragons. You're not giving your dragons to another house. That's the problem. And Otto knew that. So Otto was like,
but your argument,
we're gonna get the High Towers dragons.
But your argument,
3 houses that got
but
dragons.
Your argument makes no sense.
What do you mean?
Because what if he had got a boy out of her? We'd still be right here.
No, but
we'd still be in this exact same situation.
But
because Corlys wants the throne too. Corlys is on that council. The whole thing between him and his wife is she's just like, I gave up on the throne a long time ago. He was trying to get one of his kids on the throne. Everybody's trying to get on that throne. Everybody knows Rhaenyra can't keep that throne. And then she proves that she can't keep the throne because she starts dancing on her back with this dude over here, okay? I mean, it's like, girl, drink the tea, okay? You can't bring into the earth 3 white, dark-haired babies. This isn't going to...
Black.
Your husband is a Negro. Hair. Not only is he a Negro, he is a silver-haired Negro. That's special,
That's
okay?
Real special.
So it's like, if you got... I mean, come on. You are supposed to be bringing forth silver-haired, and their genes are strong, okay? Damon is as white and blonde as possible.
And them baby girls,
need grease.
They need lotion.
They got lace fronts.
Edge control.
They got lace fronts.
But you know what? I was hype. I was like,
they got braids
on this show.
One of them's hair, but the other girl, no, her hair was knotted. She had Bantu knots. So it's just them black genes are strong. What you think you're doing every time you bring a baby out here? What are you doing? Do you understand?
It's that duty versus passion.
Do you understand how your throne is barely secure? Okay, you're trying to be the first queen ever, and you're gonna start birthing some white man's children when you marry to a Negro? I mean, girl, come on. Drink the tea.
Drink the tea.
The masters have the tea. Drink the tea. My gosh, go drink the tea. And I guess you won't be able to have a child until you can get some juice out of that dude somehow. Because at the end of the day, no, now she's fighting. Now she got to stand here and lie.
Yeah.
Just lying. Yeah. And if the whole system is based on honor and duty and doing the right thing, okay, And she is an example of not keeping that honor. There's nothing you can do. You can't fight that. You can't stop it. Of course, the Targaryen boys, of course, Viserys' sons are going to be like, these dudes are strong. Of course, they're going to be that way.
He'd be like, you looking real strong
Y'all
over there.
looking a little strong over here. And we're going to be all mad at them like they're jerks. No, the truth of the matter is that they've been raised in the world. Because at some point, somebody's going to make them marry somebody they don't necessarily want to marry to strengthen the kingdom. They don't have any choices in who they get to be with. And so you can't tell them that that's what they have to do and then let somebody over here clearly flaunt it.
It's so true.
It's not going to work.
And you know what? It's interesting because it's making me think towards the end, I think that all what we just talked about is kind of the cause of little baby Luke. Spoiler alert, y'all. Little baby Luke walked up in there because here's the thing. He walked in there. The High Towers had strategy. Like, we're going to get ahead. First of all, we're going to get ahead of this. Second of all, we're going to bring Aemond in here and give the Baratheons a betrothal. We're going to have this whole thing set up. And they send Luke in there with just a message and his little Hot Wheels toy car dragon. It's like they're not used to having to, you see
all the more reason of how Viserys, but definitely Rhaenyra, don't know what they're doing. Like her auntie cousin already joined with the Valerians. How did that work? That didn't work for her. She didn't end up on the throne.
You're right.
So now here you are. You trying to be the first queen. Wait, hold up. Your auntie cousin married a silver-haired Negro, okay, with the sea and the power and the blue of the
Don't
Navy.
Don't be coming at Uncle Corey like that.
Whatever, okay, we have the Navy, we have the but. Okay, so she did that. How'd that work for her? Did not get the throne. Okay, so now what are you going to do? You're going to marry her son and you know the dude don't like women? Are you crazy? You had all kinds of people. If you were going to marry for strength. You ain't, you're not in love? Good, cool. Then make the best decision that you can and marry. She could have married one of them Lannister dudes. Them dudes got gold, them golden lions. She could have married them.
But we know
she
what
could have went and got a Stark.
She
could have went and got a Stark. She could have went and got a Baratheon, somebody with a beard and a beer belly and a gut and that fights boars. She could have. But no, she's so iffy and so upset about how this is beneath her and this is boring and I want to go ride on my dragons and I just I so don't want to do this. This is the thing. I can't believe women barely stand for the show because she's such an example of why sometimes people feel like, see, this is why a woman can't be king. Because she can't do what's supposed to be done.
She come. I don't think it's about her being a
Viserys
girl.
is an example of
a Targaryen, being a princess, being all. Listen, Alicent Dunn did everything she could. She has tried her hardest, and all three of her kids are crazy. All three of them. It's like, I don't know. When you're raised in that space, you're just kind of like, all right, she's chaotic. She's wild. She's got the blood of the dragon. I don't know. It's like she starts waking up to like, okay, let me marry this dude my dad's telling me to marry. Let me get it together. She did try with him. I think there would have been ways that it could have worked with the Valerians. I think sticking it in, staying within the family of the, we already have dragons with them, all this kind of stuff.
Again.
But, okay, here's my thing. Do you think that it's deep in the show, but should she have just married Daemon? What did you think of that relationship?
I mean, again, here's another example of us just loving a show that has something in it that we're just gonna look away.
Listen, we're more than okay. Not we, but people are more than okay.
We're just gonna be like, okay, it's all right. I mean, R. Kelly's in jail, okay, and I'm not saying he shouldn't be. He should be. He should be. Okay. I mean, I don't, but it's kind of like, I'm gonna, well, Viserys, who are you gonna marry? Why don't you marry this little girl over here? And somebody comes around the corner who's, ting, 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 playing on her toy piano.
Pausing her Disney Playhouse Disney episode.
It's like, oh my God, how old is she?
My daddy says that Vigard's the biggest dragon in the whole realm.
It's insane. And it's like she comes around and she's saying to him, I'm going to give you some kids. Wait till I'm 14.
I'm 14.
It's like 14. It's like
Crazy.
We're like, oh yeah, marry the
little baby.
Marry the 9-year-old. Sounds great. Or oh yeah, go marry your niece. Go marry your cousin.
Kev on stage said he was looking at her like she was thick. I was like,
Aegon is
crazy.
married. Aegon's
Literally married to his sister.
Maybe the reason why he's running around out in the streets making babies is because he's married to his crazy sister who's like, there's a beast under the boards. What is wrong with her? What happened to that girl playing with spiders and trying to find centipedes?
Listen, she was operating the prophetic.
Oh my gosh, give me a break. All I'm saying is that you married these two together. What are you thinking? Yeah. This is insanity. I mean, Damon and Rhaenyra together.
How do you think that's gonna pan out? Because
listen again, right? All because she couldn't do what she was supposed to do. She was supposed to do her duty. Okay, marry somebody strong. Okay.
Yep.
Get one of them Lannister boys. Get that big boy. You see that big strapping Lannister boy? And look at them little midget kids she had. My Lord, help me! I'm so sorry. Them little dudes who were all like, I mean, even when he walked in, he's like, I have a message. It's like, dude, hasn't your voice changed yet? Get some bass in your voice, Luke. What are you, 5?
You know what's interesting about them is like I almost, because we were talking about this earlier too, is like I almost wish that she wasn't just lying to them to move out. They're bastards, right? Because you made a good point earlier about like that word bastard and the connotation it has, and how sometimes those kind of people end up finding this like, I don't know if it's they need to prove something or they need to like work harder than other people to get where they want to be. Even the kind of second son thing of it, like how Aemon and even Daemon and the Valerians, it's like the success of bastards, I guess. It's kind of a hard word to say, but yeah, I think it's an interesting thing that maybe would have helped them to kind of like, I don't know, maybe put a fire under them a little bit. Mm-hmm. But
I mean, it's just an interesting idea. It's a very interesting concept that kind of has reflections on just, this is the issue that sometimes people had with the patriarchy. Mm-hmm. It's like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Is it environment, or is it nature, or is it nurture? Which one is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, in that particular world, it's like, if you don't have a family that claims you, if you don't, there's no freedom. The world isn't free enough for you to be like, yeah, it doesn't matter how I was born. It doesn't matter how I started. It doesn't matter how I got here. For everybody that's watching this show, it's like, yeah, how you got here doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. It's what you're supposed to do now. Your mama decided to have you. God decided to send you. You actually are able to walk in your purpose. It doesn't matter how you got here. It's not your fault how you got here. And so we have created a world and a society in which, yes, how you were born or whether or not your parents were married together has no impact on who you are as an individual person. And I think that that's a great world to live in. Mm-hmm. I think we have to find a way to be okay with that while at the same time still honoring the importance of family and connection and relationship. And sometimes we it's like there's a ditch on either side of the road and we're going to go all one or all the other, but I think that let's not get it twisted. Okay. This is all Rhaenyra's fault. This is just her fault. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. She's just not smart and she just didn't do a good job. And she came off like she was going to be smart. Mm-hmm. She came off like she was trying to fight right. But she should have known. She should have known better. If Otto can say to Allison, "Girl, you need to wake up, get yourself together. You got to realize you're in for a battle." Okay. The next episode, she's grown and she's a whole nother person.
Yep.
Okay. Now, here is Rhaenyra. She's is been raised to be queen. She should have been known. She should have been had it. She should have been had her head together and know what she needed to do to secure her throne. The minute she was named heir, she should have been like, oh, okay, we got to be about this. All right.
Yeah.
We got to figure out, well, I'm trying to be the first queen ever. Oh, no. I got to get me somebody strong up in here. Oh, no. And I know she was young, but still, you know, there was tons of suitors. People were coming across the seas with ships with all kinds of armies and battles and this and that. Yeah. And for her to settle for Corliss's son, even though she was young when she settled. Mm-hmm. So if she was young enough to settle, then she could have settled for a better choice. If you're gonna settle, then pick somebody strong. Pick somebody that you could actually have their kid. Yeah. You know, it's just
it's interesting too, because I think even it's not just the settling thing, but it's the when she makes that mistake. Well, I'm considering a mistake with Kristen Cole, because now Kristen, who was in her team, has now switched over to the Greens because he's so resenting, you know, her just kind of throwing him to the side, which, you know, we're watching it like
that was one of the saddest things of the show, how they just turned that dude. One minute that dude was cool. One minute that dude was on point. One minute that dude was chill. And the next minute he just turned into a total punk. So like they made him a hater so quick. So I've never changed so quick about a character
I was like, I don't think
ever in my life.
I was so team.
When Strong punched him in the mouth, I'm like, whoop that dude's ass. I was so mad. I'm like, yes, give him, because he's so salty and so hurt and so small. Oh my gosh, he got on my nerves. Yeah. You know, but
it's like, yo, Rhaenyra, I mean, she's the one who initiated with him.
She sure did.
Knowing good and well she's not moving to no Essos with him to sell spice and oranges.
She's
like, girl, why'd you even start this?
Again, proof that Viserys needed, I mean, listen, just like his skin was falling apart and his body was flaky, so was his brain, so was his mind. I think there was an interesting thing that you said earlier that I think also kind of has ramifications on the world that we live in, and that's kind of the balance of kind of love and duty, kind of passion versus being responsible.
Mm-hmm. Bless you.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. You know, I know there's a lot of shows that you like Married at First Sight or
Love is Blind,
Love is Blind, and I think that there's definitely, you know, questions in the world around, you know, whether or not the marriage for love or the freedom to choose as a human relationship experiment, whether or not that's been successful or not. Mm-hmm. And I think, God,
what's going on?
Excuse me. I think that there's enough data now for us to really question how people are chosen, how they choose to be with each other. Yeah. And so I think that's the other thing that's interesting about the show. It's like we're looking at a world in which people don't really have choice. And I think that's another thing that I think people, and certainly women, kind of they identified with Rhaenyra as a character because they're looking at it from their 21st century Western perspective of, oh my God, you know, I don't want my father choosing somebody for me, you know? I mean, I've teased you, you know, I've been like, keep messing around with me, Kayla, with your fly little self. I'm going to choose somebody for you. I'm going to I'm going to make a dating
We're going to make a tour, make me go on a tour.
Yep, I'm going to make a profile. You ain't got no dating profile. I'm going to make a dating profile, and dude's going to show up. I'm a catfish, and dude's going to show up, and I'm going to be like, yeah, sit down. Let's have a conversation. How you doing? Well, so
you're going to literally run, but okay.
Exactly. What I'm saying is there are women who are like, can you believe that? Never. Right. Got you. That's why you identify with Rhaenyra so much, because you're looking at it from that perspective of, oh my God, I hate that. Yeah. I get that, but I think it's much more likely that if you've been trained and taught that that's what you're going to do from the minute you are born, okay, you are shaped to know that is going to be your duty. I think it's far-fetched to think that you are going to, it's easy for us in our Western world and our freedoms to be like, oh yeah, that must have been the most horrible thing ever in the world. It's way more likely that there were people who were like, yeah, this is my duty.
Yeah.
Like, yep, this is what I have to do. Like,
Yeah, totally.
I have to help secure my family.
Yeah.
And this is something that and it's only in this modern world of, oh no, that's not right. You should have choices. That we're able to look at that and be like, oh, that's not fair. And I'm not saying it was fair, but in their world, it's like my favorite movie, Django. Okay. I love the movie. I watch it I watch it at least once a year. I love it. I just don't know how realistic it is.
Right.
I don't know how realistic it is to think that there's a guy. I mean, we're talking about the 1800s. After 400 years of slavery, I don't know if black people were that committed to each other. I think you just got to a place where you had to wear each other a little bit loosely. Yeah. I think the idea of, oh, I'm going to go find my wife. I mean, it's a romantic story, one of my favorite movies of all time. But I just don't know if it's that realistic. I think it's easy to look at that through the 21st century and be like, oh my God, he's going to go find his wife. I think the idea of, oh yeah, now what am I going to do? I'm going to Mississippi. Are you crazy? No, you're not.
Right.
You have no idea. There's no phone. There's no internet. You can't read. How are you going to find her? She could be anywhere. She could be on any plantation. No, you're not. No, that's not something you're going to do. It would never even dawn on you to do that. If you are third, fourth generation, fifth, sixth generation slave, you find yourself free. Your assumption is going to be she is dead. She is gone. I got to move on.
Yeah.
And I think in the exact same way, the idea that a girl is going to grow up in this and then come of age and be like, no, I just don't know if that's realistic. I think that there are things that are taught and we shape our children and we shape them to be who they're supposed to be. People who are racist were taught racism from when they were babies. No one's born a racist, okay? Yeah. And the same is true with Christianity. The same is true with being a Muslim. The same is true with being an atheist. The same is true with being a Jew. You're taught that from your childhood, that you're Catholic. It's difficult to break out of the Catholicism if that's what you've been raised in from being a tiny little baby.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah. It's an interesting lesson that Rhaenyra might be showing us, because I think it depends on how the show ends. Like, if it ends with Rhaenyra winning, like from what you just said, it might be interesting. Like, people will see this kind of like she fumbled the entire first half or whatever you want to say. Like, she really should be losing. Like, she kind of deserves to be losing right now. And if she does end up winning out in the end of this Dance of the Dragons that's about to happen, it kind of shows people, see, like, it's all right, you still, it's like, is that a good thing, or should she, like, I don't know, it's like an interesting thought.
And I think that's the other thing about Allison. It's like, we can look at Allison, right, and we can say whatever we want to say about her, but it's kind of like she didn't have any choices.
Yeah.
She ended up sleeping with this old man. She ended up sleeping with this dude who, who was basically rotting while he was with her. Yep. Can you imagine did you see his breath did you see his teeth at the end? It's like, did you see the scene where she's just laying on her back and she's just looking at him?
Yes.
And he's just like, in myself, I'm like, dude, you don't know how to do nothing. You want to talk about Viserys? It's like, what a loser that dude is.
No, Allison doesn't have any experience.
Everybody else knows how to somehow make somebody happy, but you don't know how to make somebody. You got a young thing in front of you, and you're like, well, I just guess I climb aboard. It's ridiculous. Give me a break, dude. She's saying nothing, and you just focusing on yourself, just thinking about you, just being selfish. You look at her.
She's literally disassociating.
Hi. He's like, oh, are you good? Yeah. Are you done? Almost. I'm almost there. What a loser he is. Viserys is just, my God. And he just lived way too long. I'm like, will you die already? My gosh. How many times are we gonna leech you? They leech that dude every week.
Every episode, I'm like, he's still there? That's crazy.
Them leeches was like, time to eat. Them leeches
Oh,
royal.
Lord.
They died royally, okay?
Yeah.
Ridiculous. And so I'm just like,
Yeah.
so here's Allison, right?
Right.
She did that. She did her duty.
She did.
She birthed some children of the actual king.
Yep.
She's right.
Yep. Yeah.
They should be on the throne.
Yeah.
And what has Rhaenyra done?
Yeah. It's very interesting. It's what makes the show so good, but it's what makes what we're talking about is so fascinating because it's like, yeah, she's in right standing by the book. She's in right standing. And yes, Rhaenyra has the dragon, the anointing, the blood, but she hasn't done everything right. So it's like, who deserves to win? Who deserves to come out successful in this?
Right.
I think that's why people are so obsessed with the show, but I think that's why they relate to it and are drawn to it. And even kind of the aspect of like, how far are you willing to go to kind of get what you want, or like to be successful in that, and their ruthlessness of it all too.
Yeah.
And seeing how Rhaenyra is going to actually, wake up. Like once Luke is gone, she's like, she turns around. She's like, all right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I feel for her. I do.
Yeah.
And I can absolutely identify with that because none of us are perfect, and we all have made mistakes, and we all need grace and mercy, and we all are grateful for our dragons, and we're all excited about the power that we have that enables us to do the things that we do and the gifts that we have. Absolutely no doubt about it. But I think that, again, that's the other thing that's interesting about this whole thing is that it's not like she's battling against somebody that's not a Targaryen.
I know.
Her brother is a Targaryen.
Yep.
And he has a
half
dragon.
brother.
And he has a dragon.
Yep.
So it's not like, Daemon has a dragon, she has a dragon, Aegon has a dragon, Aemond has a dragon. These A's names, my God, it's just too much.
And she has a son named Aemon. And
They all have dragons. So it's kind of like, well, sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. And, now she's going to, she's about to go down this whole line. And it's very interesting how she was in a situation where, maybe she could have just said, look, I don't want it. You guys don't have to worry about me. Come bow the knee. Allison said, listen, we're not going to just come kill you. We're going to give you an opportunity. Come down here, bow the knee. Your sons will be in this particular, believe me, they'll be at court. They'll be honored. They'll be serious. Everybody's going to grow up. They're all kids right now. They're going to get it. But of course, she almost can't do that. She's almost got a course of action just as a result of decisions that she's made. And who amongst us can't deal with that or can't relate to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a certain amount of decisions that we all make that create a world for us. I think, it's like it's almost like a question of, well, what's better? Is it the perfect will of God or the permissive will of God for anyone that's a Christian? It's kind of like which one am I in? And I know for me, in my experience, it's like life is what you make it.
Yeah.
And it's David going to fight Goliath, but having 5 stones. I heard people say, "Oh, he had 5 stones because Goliath had brothers." I'm like, yeah, that preaches nice, but I think he had 5 stones because he went there prepared to miss.
Right.
I recently had a very interesting interaction with this guy named Wes Stafford, who ran Compassion International for 45 years or something and turned it into $1 billion. It's an amazing, just one of the most fascinating men I've ever met in my life. Wow. Someone who was raised in Africa the first 15 years of his life and grew up with slings.
Right.
And from a little kid, fighting baboons off of the cornfields with his sling.
Wow.
And he told us that the first time he heard the David and Goliath story, he basically, him and his friends were like, yeah, Goliath was outgunned. Like, the person who was at a disadvantage was Goliath.
Wow.
He was saying that him and his friends, when they were told that Goliath was 9 feet tall, they got a bamboo tree and they climbed up it 9 feet and they shaved it off and they put like a plate up there, and they used to just with their slings practice hitting that spot on that tree over and over and over. They said they could do it so much, they were so good at it that it wasn't enough to do with standing still. You had to run and do it.
Wow.
So they're saying somebody with a sling and stones it's almost like bringing a gun to a knife fight.
Right.
Sure, Goliath is standing there with his shield and his spear and his sword, but a sling's a pretty serious weapon in that moment.
Right.
And to them, as much as they were like, oh, God did it, but they were like, no, David did it. And so anyway, his argument was the reason why David picked 5 smooth stones is because if you see good ammunition, you always put it in your pouch. He's like, they're just walking around, and if they see a good rock, they're like, oh my God, a perfectly good rock. They're going to put it in their pocket. Yeah. You don't let good ammunition go when you have the opportunity to have it.
Yeah.
And so I'm just saying all that to say that as anointed as David was, there's still a certain skill.
Yeah.
There's still a certain ability. There's still a certain strength. There's still a mastery of a skill that goes along with that.
Yep.
And those two things together is a part of what made him king. And so I think that, all of us have to deal with our human side. Yeah. Nobody's perfect. And so, David fought Goliath, but he didn't fight him for free. And so, there is all of us are saying, okay, well, what's going to be done for the one that slays this giant? And so, it's a part of what I love about House of the Dragons. It's kind of like, the people with this power, people with this fire, people with this, all of us who have this, we know that there's angels that are fighting on our behalf, that all of us, that still doesn't mean that we don't have to do the best. And none of us are worthy. We all have sinned. Yep. We all have fallen short. We all have problems. We all are imperfect. Yep. But we have to, we can rest and trust and know that there's this power. I love the fact that it's kind of, it's given to them at birth, and it kind of hatches with them, and it answers just to them. I kind of love that. There. I love that. I love the idea that, he knows my name. And that there's something that's specific for me. There's a gift that's specific for me. There's a power that's tailor-made to mine. I don't have to be mad about anybody else's talent or gifting or skill or ability. This guy that I am, I don't have to be mad at anybody else's success or anybody else's, because I have my own dragon, and my dragon may not be as big as theirs, but that's okay. I'm still in the air.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. Yeah. So good. I
still can fly. It still can take me distances, Yeah. And I think I have to be careful with my dragon. You know? Yep. I have to be careful with my dragon. Yeah. And so, I can't take it for granted. Yeah. I think one of the sad things about, Daenerys was just, she had 3 dragons. Yep. Yep. And, 3. She didn't have 1. She had 3 and ended up losing them, and ended up down to 1. Yeah. So, That's true. But anyway, I think that the show is extremely interesting.
It is.
Very, very good show.
It's a very good show.
I also like the fact that, I know I was a little hard on Corlys and the Valerians, but I like the fact that they introduced some black people.
We didn't even say that.
Yeah, I like
the fact that they have black people is amazing. And I think, too, I love that they chose the Valerian house for them, because when you hear Corlys in episode 2 talk about it, he talks about how, we could be the strongest house, but because we've always been overlooked, we're always the second, we're not target, we don't have the right blood, we don't have the Targaryen blood, we've always had to fight to be where we are, to have what we have, to be, rulers over the ships and the narrow sea and all these things. I thought that was really fascinating that they chose black people for that house.
Yeah, and I love the fact that they're black is never mentioned. It's not like true. Anybody talks about it. It's not like when they come to Rhaenyra, she's like, "Oh my God, what? You want me to marry the black person?" It's not like, you know what I mean? It's not like when they come to Viserys and they're saying, yeah, marry Corlys's daughter, he's not like, yeah, I don't really like black people. There's no mention of that. It's almost like, they're different and they're people of color, and it's just kind of like, what does it have to do with it?
Yeah.
It's a glimpse into a world that would be wonderful. It'd be an amazing world if the color of your skin had no impact on whether or not somebody wanted to be connected with you or joined with you or, in relationship with you. And that they still had a strong house and, that they did have power, because they had dragons too.
Yep.
They had the sea, they had the ships, but they also had dragons. So, that was another thing that was really cool.
Yeah, I loved that.
That was cool about the show. Yeah, I liked that too.
I liked that as well.
I just think that it deals with a lot of issues. I mean, it deals with women's rights and women's ability to be empowered or disempowered, or it tackles that. It's just it deals with kind of bloodlines and kind of the right to rule based on blood versus it deals with kind of norms in terms of are you disciplined, are you good, are you strong. It's just there's a lot of really interesting pieces to it.
It is.
And
how I think the other thing too that I was thinking about earlier when you were talking is the fact that Rhaenyra, everything kind of flips on his head. I mean, it's a gradual thing. That's what the whole season is, but it flips on its head really fast with loss. I mean, once Viserys is gone, I mean, she's not there. He dies. Alicent comes in. She flips the script. It's like, it's another thing that people can relate to of like. Right.
It's kind of like families and whether or not families can stay together and whether or not families can't be in agreement with each other. I mean, Viserys is kind of like, look, if you guys can't get it together around this table, this thing is not going to work.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sorry, but y'all are family. Yep. I'm surrounded at this table by people that I love. Okay. I know I've made some mistakes. I made some mistakes. There was no good decision. What could I do? Yeah. You guys wanted me to renege on what I said to her. This is my daughter. So, but believe me, there's more than enough food for everybody. There's more than enough power for everybody. Why is everybody got to argue over this one little seat?
Yep.
Y'all are going to mess it up and lose everything.
Yep.
And the truth of the matter is that that's exactly what ends up happening.
Yep.
And now, they're about to go to war over a chair when there really was more than enough places to sit. There was more than enough houses. There was more than enough. We're not talking about people who are trying to figure out how they're going to eat.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, the girl had a choice. Almost every single house that came to her would have given her a place to sit and rule over
Everything
an area.
Would have been smooth.
Nobody talking about marrying her to like a farmer or something.
Right.
No. Right. It was people coming and saying, well, we have this, we have that, we're a house with this, we have this kind of power, we have that, we have that, we have that. You join with us, you get this strength. Yeah.
I think it's a matter of them all kind of taming their inner dragon, that blood of the dragon that they have in them. Because I think even earlier too, we were talking about how nowadays it's like everybody wants to be king. Everybody wants to be the one on the camera or the owner or the president or and it's like, no, maybe you were just supposed to add to the family by like, hey, I am married to a Lannister. We have dragons as well. We can, and never, and not, I don't know.
It's an interesting discussion. Discretion is the better part of valor. It's like, at what point do you decide, well, maybe I'm not, I have this dream. What happens to a dream deferred? Okay, well, I have this dream to be this particular voice, but at what point am I going to say, well, maybe that's not ever going to happen, but this was really good.
Right.
Maybe that's not something I'm ever going to do, but you know what? Life is really great, and I'm in a really good place, and I have a lot of good stuff around me, and I have a lot of good, people, and a lot of good, I think that every individual person has to figure that out. Yeah. They have to figure out the balance between, did they give up before they should have, or did they say, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm not gonna have a, it's like I kind of said something to my brother Phil the other day, like, because he was nominated for another Dove Award or whatever, and then he was kind of saying, yeah, I didn't win, and when I called him, I'm like, yeah, but dude, you were nominated for a Dove, I mean, I got you. It'd be great to win, but do you know how many people would love to be nominated for a Dove Award?
Right.
And then right after that, you get on a plane and you go to London and you you sing to a million, to 1,000, and now he's getting ready to do something where he's going to stand in front of 1 million people. Like the words are great, okay? Like it would have been nice to win a Dove Award, but you know what?
This is good.
Dude, you're winning.
Really,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're winning.
Yeah.
And I just think that, you know, it's like in the exact same way. It's like I think we all have to we set our goals for ourselves. We, you know, I'm definitely somebody that set a goal for myself. Oh, I want to get to this particular place by this particular time. And then I had to kind of reevaluate, well, I wonder how realistic that was. What was it that made me set that goal? And what was it that made me say that? I came to the Raleigh-Durham area and I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. But when I made that goal in a certain amount of ignorance. So now it's like I have to have the maturity and the ability to readapt, you know. Otherwise, I'm going to drive myself crazy trying to reach a goal that may not necessarily be realistic. And then a goal that might be based on a world that doesn't exist anymore. When I first was coming up, I was just like, oh, I want to be the next Fred Price. But Fred Price got to be Fred Price when there were only 6 channels. There was no Word Network. So there were only 6 channels. That means All in the Family. That means when Fred Price was on nationally, he was on, there was only 6 other choices. The pie was cut up in 6 pieces. Okay? It's unrealistic to, you know, I can look at the domes and all of that stuff. I think I came up with that, like, oh, I'm going to have my own faith dome. But what if the world changes? What if now COVID happens? How can you adjust? Can you adapt? And at what point is that giving up on your dream? Or is it you making the adaptation that life brings? Sometimes people who are the most stuck are the people who are the most stubborn. Sometimes they get the most done, but sometimes they're also the people who are the most brokenhearted because they're unable to make the adaptations that life brings, that life demands. That you say, hey, you know what? This is what I thought it was going to be, but this is the world. And I've got to adapt to what the real world brings. This is my situation. Now, how can I adapt to that? And how do you find the balance between just giving in and being like, well, this is the world, versus, hey, this is my situation. It's and I have to own it. I have to own my situation. I have to own my life. I have to own my mistakes. I have to own the bad that goes along with the good. Because there's going to be some bad, and I got to own it. And I got to stop making excuses for it. I got to be like, yep, well, this is what I did. And hey, I'm human, and that's okay. You know what? I'm only human after all. But God still loves me, or I still have a gift, or I still have the ability, and I'm going to push through. And we are surrounded. We get an opportunity to see people who are like, yep, but I'm still moving forward. We're looking at them all the time. Kanye it's just like, yep, white lives matter. Yep, but I'm going to make a shoe that's going to make $1 billion. Yep, well, they say I'm crazy, but I don't care. It's like people who are driven by their own. I mean, Donald Trump, excellent example of that. Like, yep, I grab Google. That's what I do. I grab women. That's exactly what I do. And I'm still going to be president. And they end up being president. Whereas there's others of us who are kind of like, yeah, but oh my God, I was wrong. So that means I'm no longer qualified. Donald Trump's like, oh, I'm not? No, I still am. I lied, but I'm still going to be president. No, I don't want you to see my tax returns, but I'm still going to be president. What was it, as a porn star? Yeah, I know her. Hey, Stormy, what's up, girl? I'm still going to be president. And so it's kind of like, I think that we have to be inspired by those people who are like, oh, I'm driven by my purpose and not by perfection.
No, it's true.
And I think there's a lot of us, you know, and I say this a lot of the times, there's those of us who were raised in this kind of condemnation theology of, oh, well, if you made a mistake, then now, oh, God's mad at me, or now I can't do this, or
your purpose, you knocked yourself off your path.
Oh my God, and I disqualified myself. And then you will see somebody who will just run right on past you, and you're just like, oh, but wait a minute, how are they? And then you do the background and find out the stuff that's going on in their life, and you have to come to grips with the fact that actually You know, you want to put a causality on something that you can't necessarily put your finger on because you want to be able to predict the world. That's a part of it.
Right.
The Christian world doesn't want to deal with the unpredictability that is life sometimes.
Yep.
And so to do that, they have got to make the world fit in this kind of little notion of A equals B and B equals C, so A equals C.
Yeah.
Sometimes the Lord is like, yeah, but sometimes A equals D. And we're like, oh, no, it don't. No, it don't.
Right.
And God's like, oh, yeah, well, I'm going to use the weak things to shame the strong, and the poor things to shame the rich, and the foolish things to shame the wise. And I'm going to choose the despised things and the things that are not, to nullify the things that are, just because I'm like that, just so I can do it that way, and just to make everybody think, let him who boasts in what God is able to do. And that just doesn't fit in our ultra-right religious mindset. We want there to be consequences. It's not just that there are. We want there to be consequences because if they're not, then our math is messed up.
Right. Yeah.
But, you know.
No, it's interesting because I mean, obviously all ties back to the show, but it's like that, it's that, I don't know, that faith of the Song of Ice and Fire, believing, I think Rhaenyra really believes, no, I'm the answer. I have to figure this out. But then we've got, I mean, earlier in the season, Rhaenys is like, this is the reality of it, though. Like, that's never going to work. You've got to do that. Alice and Otto got to strategize. And it's like there's finding that in-between space. And that's, I know, again, I think that's why people are so drawn to it, because I think we're like, yeah, what do you do? What is right? What is wrong? Like, what is the path? Because, you know.
And I think that's another thing I liked about Daemon, because at first it's like Daemon's a little bit out of control, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh, purpose? The next thing you know, it's like, oh, yeah, some purpose gives him a certain amount of strength. That's why I'm always saying to everybody, every dude, anyone, well, get about your purpose, because your purpose will pull you past your imperfections. You know, and same with Aegon. It's like, of course he's running around crazy because he has no purpose. Yeah. But once he's in there and he looks at his mom and he carries it, and he's like, really? He really wants me to be king? He's like, I never wanted it, but maybe I never wanted it because no one ever chose it for me. He really said that? Look, he gave you this knife. Like, wow. Now he goes through the thing.
All the people are cheering.
People are cheering, and he lifts up the sword, and he's like, you know what?
I can do this.
Maybe I can be right. Maybe I can have a good head on my shoulders.
We'll see.
We'll see. Maybe I can do the right stuff.
Yeah.
Purpose leads you down that path.
Yeah, that's good.
And without purpose, life is meaningless. You can't just chase pleasure. But it's interesting. He has no purpose, so he's just chasing pleasure.
Right.
And the minute Daemon has no purpose, and he's just chasing pleasure. But the minute a purpose happens, it's like, oh, you need us to go fight this war? Let me do something. Let me be useful. Let me take my dragon and go fight this war on the stepstones. Let me go do it. And then when they're like, you're going to fail, he's like, well, I guess I'll die. If I die, let me die in the army of the Lord. If I die, I'm going to go down there and fight these crab people. I'm going to fight them myself. You know, and the next thing you know, what? They win. Why? Because he's refuses to go back to just sitting around waiting for his brother to say, oh, have some juice. You know, they're like, oh, yeah, they about to, your brother about to bail you out again. He's like,
right. He's like, no, I want to do
anybody's help. Why? Because he has to have purpose.
Yeah.
Without purpose, there's no life.
Yeah. And it's interesting that once he does win, it's like he's kind of almost back. He's back to his old. What's he? You know, he's taking Rhaenyra and Ding on Pleasure House, and he's cutting up again. And it's like then we see him after he's married. First of all, married a brown girl. Again, got his daughters. Got.
I know
family.
Y'all love to aim at that, but there's no
like,
mention of that. It's not like he's like, you know what? I'm gonna get somebody who needs some lotion. No, it's not like that happens. No, he marries the girl. She's from a good house. The girls was cute with their little black lotion
so
and blonde hair.
cute.
They were cute girls. He
Cute
marries.
girls.
She's like, hey, you
Yeah.
know.
But it's like he has this family now. Now I feel like he's settled down. That's true. That finding that purpose again is really,
Yeah.
gives you that direction. It's interesting.
It's interesting.
We could talk about the show all day.
Somebody said watch it from Ghana, Africa. I know. Plus it's Monday night. And this was, this was Halloween. I mean, I don't know how many people celebrate Halloween. But, if you're watching this later, it's great. We had a great conversation. This was Beyond the Pulpit.
It's fun.
It was really great. We talked about House of the Dragon.
Good show.
And a good show. I think it's still, we talked about leadership. We talked about duty versus relationship, love versus we talked about the power that you have within that dragon is on your side, your gift, your anointing, your power. It was a good show.
Good one.
It was
I liked
great.
it.
Okay,
Good
so
stuff.
glad you were here with us tonight. And, like, share, click,
Do all the things.
subscribe, tell somebody. And this was...
if you end up watching House of the Dragon because of us, let us know.
Let us
Comments.
know. Comment, say something.
Check it out.
Okay.
HBO Max.
Thanks for being here with us tonight.
Bye, everybody. How do we do it? I have to pee so bad. You know what? It kind of is on brand that we did this today. A little bit.